What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut album by rapper Paul Wall. Basically, this project is called Chick Magnet, and it came out in the winter of 2004. Now, this is a particular hit album from Paul Wall. I'd have to say I do like the concept of most of this particular project. I'd have to say maybe not as much of a full-blown smash as like the People's Champ, but definitely kind of some rough around the edges, just the initial Paul Wall that just really had some particular charm about it that I kind of enjoyed a rather bit of that I kind of enjoyed a rather well amount. So I'd have to say this is a good concept here just to particularly kind of see some. So I'd have to say it's a good concept to see some of this particular stuff. I don't know if this album had a single, but I would have to say about it that it does at least have the song They Don't Know on here, which was this album does at least have the song They Don't Know on here, which was a particular hit smash off the People's Champ album from 2005. So Paul Wall held on to that particular song. On this album, it has Mike Jones. On the People's Champ album, it has Bun B. So it's a pretty good concept to particularly kind of see that one. But yeah, this is basically some rough draft and kind of rougher around the edges Paul Wall. He's not quite as realized as he was on People's Champ. He doesn't have like an anchored kind of hit like Sitting Sideways or Girl or some of those type ones off the People's Champ. I would still have to say this is a pretty quality album. I would have to suppose some good concepts just to kind of have about it. It's just kind of an initial kind of, like I was saying, just a rough draft kind of Paul Wall that really has some good fun stuff on here. The beats, there may not be as immediate of hit type beats on here. There may not be as immediate type beats on here, but there are a couple of good bubblers on here. Like a couple of the best beats on this particular project would have to be Oh No with Trade the Truth, and then My Life, which is the last song you hear on this particular album. There are some decent bops on here, but this is just kind of like almost like an independent album, I would have to suppose. This is kind of the concept. This is actually Paul Wall's debut, so this was a studio album. This is something Paul Wall was actually around in early 2004, 20 years ago, as far as that pitch kind of happens. This is kind of the concept. I just kind of think that this is like the album before the album, kind of like Tupac's actual debut album was like, kind of like how Tupac's actual debut album was Tupacalypse Now. And another album that this album particularly reminds me of is T.I.'s I'm Serious, where most people think that T.I. started with the album Trap Music, and that was the one that had his initial hits like 24s and Let's Get Away and some of those type ones. Paul Wall's kind of pseudo debut is the People's Champ because it had like debut hits like They Don't Know and Sitting Sideways and some of those type ones and Girl. But I'd have to say this is the particular album that was basically like Paul Wall's I'm Serious album. So it's a good concept to kind of see that. It's a good concept to kind of see that. This album definitely has some Southern charm. This album definitely has some Southern charm, and it does have a few good hooks on here as well. I feel like some songs like Oh No and My Life has some great hooks on here, and Chick Magnet and Why You Peeping Me are some ones with some excellent kind of hooks on here. It's just a good concept. I do like this particular concept because I didn't realize that some of these were kind of more bopish just within that particular sense. I mean, this is kind of Southern fried hip hop, but it kind of reminds me of an amalgamation of like T.I. and Nelly, some of those type stuff, some of those type folks. I'd had to say maybe Paul Wall doesn't really sing song through his verses and stuff like that like Nelly kind of does, but it just kind of this particular album kind of has like some hip hop type charm more so than hardcore full blown rap. I'd have to suppose it's a Texas type album. I would definitely say it definitely has some Texas swang about it, kind of similar to Bun B and UGK and Killer Mike. Kind of similar to Bun B and UGK and folks like that, Slim Thug, some of those type folks, Mike Jones, Chamillionaire, some of those type folks from the South as far as that particular pitch kind of happens. But it's just kind of I do feel like it's interesting that this album does kind of have somewhat of a commercial sheen despite not having that anchored kind of breakout single, I'd have to suppose. So it's a pretty good concept. Definitely a rough around the edges type Paul Wall album that's kind of not really as full blown casual as like the People's Champ, but it's definitely a pretty good concept if you invest in Paul Wall to kind of say, well, there's just some extra kind of bona fide hits on here that kind of has that concept. So we'll go ahead, recommend the songs on here. Basically, there's not really a single. I'd have to suppose. I do kind of feel like Paul Wall's debut album with singles on it was the People's Champ, just to that kind of particular concept. I would have to say possibly They Don't Know is like a single. That's the first song you hear on this particular album, and it's pretty dope song. It's the same beat that it is on the People's Champ. I guess I could talk about this one real quick. This is like classic Paul Wall. I'd have to say it's a nice mic. The song has a nice Mike Jones verse on here. He contributes pretty well to the song. I have to say, I think I like the one with the People's Champ a little bit better with Bun B on there. Not to say anything against the Mike Jones one. Mike Jones fits this song pretty well. It's just kind of that one was a little bit more affable on the People's Champ. It's just a little bit more realized. But this is definitely some good syrup sipping kind of malaise, I'd have to say. And it's a pretty good gem, I'd have to suppose. So it's a pretty good concept, kind of get that. But to talk about the 13 songs of this particular album, apart from They Don't Know, which is kind of an almost song just because it's the same song as it is on the People's Champ, but I will count it. But it's just kind of the concept that you can find it on both albums, I'd have to say. But there's basically 8 songs out of 13 I wound up recommending. So it's kind of the concept about it. So basically, the 8 songs I recommend would be Oh No, My Life, Chick Magnet, Why You Peepin' Me, Know What I'm Talking About, Did I Change, That's What That Is, and the almost song kind of pseudo in some cases. And the kind of pseudo almost song is They Don't Know, I'd have to suppose. I already talked about They Don't Know, but talk about some of these on here. Like I was saying before, one of the best beats on this particular album would have to be My Life. It's a pretty basic song title, but still a pretty great concept to get this particular song. Definitely one of the best songs on the whole album. Like I was saying, just a real excellent kind of concept to kind of get this particular one. This is like a glimmering kind of evening haze of a song. I'd have to say this is good for some day after hours, kind of smoke one. This is definitely good for some day after hours. I'd have to say just a smoke one in the sunset kind of tune. I'd have to suppose pretty good concept to kind of see that particular one. And this is just a mellow kind of possible turn up type tune. So this is kind of one where you could listen to. We're winding down for the evening or getting ready to get turned up for the evening. It kind of works either way at like 6:37 p.m. something like that. Just kind of your decision if you're going to get crunk or not. Just go to sleep, something like that. Just within those particular type pitches. Just a good concept. Kind of have some of that malaise just for like the after hours or just like summer kind of haze as far as that pitch can have. It's just a nice one. There are some kind of makeshift type tunes on here. I feel like songs like My Life and a little bit of Why You Peepin' Me, some of these type ones. There's some songs like My Life and a little bit of like Know What I'm Talking About, some of these type ones. Did I Change? There's definitely some ones that kind of have some evening kind of malaise that just like the summer, just kind of got done with work or class, some stuff like that. We'll get to some more of these, but it's this kind of concept that a lot of these do have some of that kind of evening malaise. It's a good concept because People's Champ didn't have that as much. It's just kind of like some day after hours type pitch. I mean, there's not really any club songs on this particular album apart from They Don't Know, I'd have to suppose. It's kind of the concept of me just thinking about that. It's not really a lot of crunk on here either. Not really like some get crunk kind of get drunk type songs just within that particular pitch or dance club type songs. I feel like People's Champ just had that a little bit better, but I would have to say at least They Don't Know is like the one boiler that kind of does that. But Oh No with Trade the Truth is a pretty nice one. This is definitely a pretty good highlight off this particular album. Definitely one of the more immediate ones, I'd have to say. This is like a vintage kind of Texas bravado gem, I'd have to say. This is a pretty steadfast beat. I would definitely feel like this one reminds me of Swang On 'Em by Bun B off of his Two Trill album from 2008. Despite the fact that this came out 4 years before that particular song, this pretty good concept. Kind of get some of those just brassy type ones in like a more kind of deep sense. I'd have to suppose pretty good concept. It's kind of an in between kind of regular evening haze of a song. I'd have to suppose it's another one that's pretty similar to like My Life, just within some of that malaise of just like 6:30 p.m. some pitches like that as far as that kind of particularly kind of goes. But it's just a good concept. Definitely an in between type song. Just kind of one that this is a little bit more kickback, just kind of near your vehicle, just kind of the after hours of just being on your phone a little bit, just just being on your phone a little bit, making plays, stuff like that. Just kind of some kickback, smoke a swish or something like that. Just have a sandwich, some of those type kickbacks, watch a little bit of a football game. Just some kind of low key kind of malaise, just kind of relaxation, just stuff like that. Just checking out some music, some of those type pitches, checking out some music, some of those type pitches as far as that particularly kind of happens. It's a good concept. But I do look after this one. Yeah, it's just kind of an in between, almost like a snackish type tune, just kind of not quite as relaxing, quite as comfortable as some of the songs on this particular album, like Chick Magnet and Why You Peeping Me. But it's definitely kind of just a hangout type tune. I'd have to suppose a little bit of PlayStation music, some stuff like that. I'd have to suppose it's a good concept. One of the more popular songs off this album, according to Spotify, is Chick Magnet, the title track. Definitely appreciate this one. This is like a woozy kind of southern charm tune. I'd have to suppose pretty good concept for that particular thing. Pretty good concept for that particular thing. This has a stellar hook, I'd have to suppose. Real good concept for that. This is like a dope kind of initial Paul Wall hit, I'd have to say, definitely. And this is just some good summer malaise. So once again, this is another summer evening type tune. Just great for like the once again, just great for summer sunset, stuff like that. Just 7 o'clock p.m., some of those type pitches, just some real good kickback and just overall evening malaise as far as that pitch kind of particularly kind of happens. This one's just a lot more of a recreational type tune. Definite ladies bob as far as that particular pitch kind of happens. Just some good ladies, just some good flirty kind of evening malaise with a dope hook on the particular song to really have just for some of that after hours kind of fun. I'd have to suppose a good concept for that one. Why You Peeping Me is a good follow up to that particular song. Chick Magnet, I'd have to say this is like a standard kind of day hopping. This is some solid kind of standard day hopping bop type music. I'd have to say pretty good concept for that particular thing. I'd have to suppose just a good kind of this is just some good kind of springtime bounce music, I would definitely feel like, and it's just pretty hooky and affable, I would definitely have to suppose, and it's just some good job to kind of, and this is some good job to particularly kind of have just for like some evening kind of haze. So a lot of these, once again, this is some more evening kind of haze and just kind of standard springtime type bounce, I'd have to suppose. This one's a little bit more springtime, just a little bit more hop and bop compared to some of these other songs. I feel like a lot of this is just kind of 5:30, 6:30 p.m. type malaise. I feel like Oh No, My Life, and Chick Magnet are a lot more just kind of 6:30 p.m. type malaise as far as that particular pitch kind of happens, but this is a lot more just kind of like 3:30, 4 p.m. type stuff just within that particular pitch. Just a little bit of bounce on this particular song. Definitely has some pep about it. Just pretty affable type tune to kind of have just for like some standard kind of bopish bounce, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good concept, but it's a pretty good pairing just to kind of have with Chick Magnet. I'd have to say, like I was saying, it's pretty good. Another pretty good hop and bop type ladies tune just to kind of have within that particular pitch of just some day after hours, just kind of tasks done, responsibilities done for the most part, just within the pitch of just some kickback and just kind of evening after hours, just kind of pitch of just kind of just a little bit of evening after hours unwind and just fraternizing as far as that pitch kind of particularly kind of has this good concept. Do like some of these. I mean, the thing about some of these productions, like Why You Peepin' Me, it's a pretty standard production. This one is not one that immediately kind of jumps off the page. And there's some other ones on here like Know What I'm Talking About. Some of these type ones, let's say a little bit of Chick Magnet in like certain senses. These are just kind of like more of like B minus kind of C plus type beats, at least in terms of immediacy. I mean, these are great beats. I do appreciate these productions. They're affable. There's just kind of the concept they're just not as immediate as like Sitting Sideways is, or Girl is, or some of the ones off of People's Champ, like the song he did with Lil Wayne, March and Step, some of those type ones, or like the song he did with BG, some of those type ones off of the People's Champ, some of those type ones. It's just, I feel like the budget was just bigger on the People's Champ, but this is still like, these are some vanilla type songs that just have some good productions on there, but they're just not as full blown immediate, I suppose, but they are quality. Know What I'm Talking About? It's another good example of that particular type pitch. This is like a vanilla kind of regular late day malaise, I'd have to suppose. This is like another vanilla, regular, late day malaise. I'd have to suppose. Pretty good concept for that particular pitch. This has a workaday feel and like a hustler sense, I'd have to suppose. And this is a great song for some outings, I'd have to say. So it's pretty good concept. Kind of see some of that particular type pitch. Just kind of talking about, know what I'm talking about? It's just kind of an in-between type song, just a concept for having some outings, but just kind of in the sense of just before the kickoff kind of particularly kind of happens. It's not really like a full-blown kind of house party type song, but it's just kind of one to kind of get you a little bit exhilarated, a little bit excited for something that's getting ready to pop off in like a couple hours or some sort of pitch like that. It's just kind of an in-between and kind of prep. It's just kind of an in-between and a primer type song for getting ready to have some times as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it, I suppose. Another nice one on here would be Did I Change? This is definitely a pretty highlighted one, I'd have to say. This is like an introspective kind of UGK like evening malaise of a song, I'd have to say. Pretty good concept for that. This is like a thought-provoking kind of smoke a good Swisher Sweet type tune, I would have to say, and it has some good kickback for that sort of concept, I would definitely say. This is definitely something that Bun B and Pimp C would do, I would have to say, within that pitch. Definitely one of those reflective type tunes that Pimp C would crank out on like a more malaise type feeling. Definitely one of those ones that Pimp C would crank out on a more malaise type feeling, I'd have to suppose. So it's a pretty good concept for that one. Definitely an introspective type one. Definitely pretty good concept for some ruminating and pitches like that, for just to smoke a few in like a sunset sense, I'd have to suppose. Pretty nice kickback to kind of get with that particular one. And then That's What That Is a highlighted one. This has Bun B and Killer Mike on there and Big Hawk, which is a pretty good concept. This is like a Texas kind of roundabout posse cut, I'd have to suppose, minus Killer Mike, but Killer Mike's pretty good on the song also, I'd have to say. This is like a loud kind of rumbling Texas bravado cut, I'd have to say. It's a pretty solid hangout noise. This is some pretty solid hangout noise, I'd have to say. Definitely good for some guys' night out type stuff, but the beat is kind of ho-hum on here, I'd have to say. So I do recommend this song enough to be able to say, but it's not one of the first and most immediate ones I'd go for just off the draw. I'd have to say it's a pretty good concept to kind of get this particular one. But it's probably about like a 6 out of 10 or like a 5.5 out of 10 in terms of quality, just in terms of the pitch of this particular one. I mean, I do like the folks on the song. I do like these Bun B and Paul Wall type songs. Killer Mike being on the song, Big Hawk being on the song, some stuff like that. It's definitely got some guys night out kind of bravado and energy. It's just a real kind of flex type song, just some stuff like that kind of for just kind of big boy noise, kind of bravado as far as that pitch kind of has with it. But it's just kind of concept. It's just a little bit cumbersome. I just kind of feel like it probably could have been better. I feel like if it had been a beat like Oh No with Trey the Truth, that probably would have pulled off the vibe a little bit better compared to this one. Oh No just nailed it a little bit better. But I'd say it's a decent concept, enough to recommend, but it's just not one of the most immediate ones, I'd have to say. So it's just kind of concept. It's just like I said with this particular album, that the production on here is solid enough, but it's just not as full blown immediate. This is kind of more rough draft kind of Paul Wall as far as that pitch kind of happens. This is not as big of a budget in terms of production quality, but still good concept. So talk about the 5 songs I didn't recommend on here, which some of these just had some really poor productions and just didn't really jump off the page at all. These just barely felt like they should be on like a marketed album to stores as far as that particular pitch kind of happened. A lot of these were just pretty ho-hum and just low budget that just didn't really have like a good affability. Like What You Go and Do is an example of that one. That was just kind of a clumsy type one. That was pretty much on par with like That's What That Is in terms of the beat production quality. It's just kind of the concept that some of these were just some ho-hum type ones that just didn't deliver that well. There's some other ones on here that were just kind of in-between type songs, like Am What I Am is kind of a poor one that was just kind of an in-between type song. I mean, some of these, Am What I Am, Trying to Get Paid, Break Bread, some of these type ones are just kind of more in-between type songs just for like some day after hours malaise. A lot of this just continues like the theme of some of the more highlighted hits on here that just kind of have like some day after hours just kind of kick back and just reflective kind of recreational type vibes. We're just sparking up a Swisher and some stuff like that. Just the kickback of hanging, just the kickback of having a sandwich, hanging near a vehicle, getting some daps and stuff like that. Just the standard kind of evening malaise and just recreational kind of kickback, just of like some reflective type stages and just kind of more spoke and just kind of more spark a Swisher, some of that type of stuff. But some of these just more clumsy type ones, like some of these in between type cuts in the middle, the album just kind of dropped the ball a little bit and just had some real low. They just kind of dropped the ball a little bit and had some low budget kind of productions on there that just didn't really jump off the page much of it all, I'd have to say. And it's the same concept with Hustler Stacking Ends. That was just another in between type one that just didn't pull it off. So this is kind of the concept about some of these. But me basically recommending like 8 out of 13 songs on this particular album. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album like a 7.75 out of 10. I feel like that's a pretty good quality. There's enough standard hits on here to appreciate and stuff like that. This is definitely some solid stuff. And for an independent damn near album, this is not independent, but it's pretty close just in terms of like this initial debut of just kicking things off, kind of similar to T.I.'s I'm Serious, where Paul Wall was just getting his initial wings as far as that particular concept kind of went. Although he did have those color change and click outs, but just to say for Paul Wall's solo career, this is a pretty good debut. Definitely had some quality on here. It's just kind of more offhanded and not as direct and immediate, I'd have to suppose. And not as direct and immediate, I'd have to suppose. That's kind of the concept. But the social score, I'm going to go ahead and give the social score like a 7 out of 10, just because I feel like the concepts of some of this, there is some quality on here, but it's just, like I said, it's not very immediate and it's full blown casual, I'd have to say. Definitely would have to prefer and definitely would have to recommend the People's Champ over this particular one. Just hits that much heavier in terms of the overall blockade of hits on that particular album. But this is still some good stuff. Has some decent. I mean, this album has some low key stuff. It does have some guests on here like Slim Thugs on here, Killer Mike, Bun B, Mike Jones, and folks like that. Trade the Truth are on here. So there's some local kind of Texas artists and folks like that. It does have some good social qualities. Does have some aspects. There are some immediate ones on here in certain senses, like My Life and Oh No. They Don't Know, some of those type ones. Chick Magnet, Why You Peeping Me are some great songs for the ladies as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. So it is it's just some more kind of minimalist kind of Paul Wall that works within a certain sense, but it's just kind of like a more of an acquired taste, I'd have to suppose. It's definitely one that I would recommend to seek out just within the context, but you just have to realize that it's not quite as full blown casual and as immediate as like some of the stuff that he was known for in his prime years in like the mid 2000s, I'd have to say, but still a good concept. So in terms of the future, like Paul Wall just dropped an album in December of 2023 called like The Great Wall or something like that, which is a solid concept. I'm definitely going to get to some more of these Paul Wall albums. I'm going to review Check Season next, probably, and that's a good concept about that because that was from 2013. I want to see. That's Paul Wall's 2013 album. I want to see what's up with that. And I'm going to also review the Poet, and I'm also going to review the Poet from 2014. So there are some more ones I'm going to get to, but it's definitely a solid enough project here, and it's decent enough to recommend for the most part. It's above average, definitely above decent to recommend, but it's just kind of not as immediate, I'd have to say, but still a pretty solid one.